everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Sita Kuratomi Bhaumik, and I'm very humbled to be here today. I, to be honest, did not know much about Bonnie's work before I was asked to be on this panel, and I received a text message this morning from a friend, and I asked her for permission to read it, and it said, "Sita, be there in the Ora Sherk spirit. Let the feminine punk garden geek within guide you. And also, I don't know how the hell I never saw the intersection of your work with hers and the mycological inextricability of both of y'all's ethics around systems and landscapes. Shit, I wish I was there." And so it's been a huge and humbling honor to just learn and continue to learn about her work and legacy and see the connections. And I look forward to all of y'all showing me that too. I wanted to, before I start talking, pass this little tablet, paper pad, thank you to the folks who grabbed it. It just has 2 columns. It says, "I use blank to make blank." And if we could send this around the room, and just, you can, anything you want it to be. Write one word in this column over here on the left. I use paper to make airplanes. I use words to make, anyway. And I just want to, by way of maybe introducing ourselves to each other, and also in this, in the thread, thinking about ecology and who's in the room and what makes up this moment in time together. And if it can make its way back up here to me, that would be amazing. And very big thank you to Frank and Tanya if I didn't say that already. So this talk is, I'm just going to focus on a couple of pieces. 3 of them, actually. And I'm also interspersing it with some questions that I've asked myself as an artist. Questions that I asked myself as I was preparing to talk to you all today, as I'm thinking about what do I do next. And it has to do with lots of things: ecology, belonging, connection. I've been thinking, if we think of like the garden as a metaphor, well, okay, picture this: you're in the garden at night, you look up and you see stars. I've been thinking a lot about constellations and what that means for us as artists, and the work that we want to both make and see more of in the world. I'm working on a book right now called "We Make Constellations of the Stars," and I have these elements that I've written about, and I wanted to start off by reading you the one about wonder. So this is an artist's definition, if you will, of wonder. "The pace and weight of a dandelion seed floating in the air. It is a feeling produced by experiencing something that does not seem possible. It is what happens when, as Emory Douglas says, you can make something out of nothing. He also calls this art. He also calls this magic. Wonder is the night sky with too many stars to count. It is the line drawn between the stars that make up constellations. Often, wonder makes itself known in our inability to explain how wonder is produced. It is often believed that if looked at too closely, wonder will slip away from us or simply disappear. If looked at too closely, wonder will tell you that at times it has kept us safe. In circumstances where mind and body have needed to part ways, wonder makes its home in the mind, offering us another world to inhabit when the physical world is too much. Billions have been spent on dissecting and reproducing the conditions for wonder. Wonder can be felt by diving into a pool of plastic sprinkles. This kind of wonder accepts visa. It is wonder for wonder's sake. It leaves us hungry for more wonder while hungry birds digest the pellets caught in the cuff of our jeans scattered unknowingly along Market Street. The true potential of wonder is in its coupling with criticality. The sleight of hand that strikes us as wonderful. This is made possible with black and brown hands, the hands of the workers, the wonder builders. Wonder and power reside here, knowing that there are things that are only possible together that are not possible alone. Adjacent words include play, imagination, creativity, curiosity, and magic. I, unsurprisingly for our conversation today, am an artist who works in relationships. And in these pieces that I'll be talking to you about today, the one on the left is Estamos contra el muro, We Are Against the Wall, which was made in 2016. It was a wall made entirely out of piñata-shaped bricks, installed and destroyed just before the election that elected Trump, at Southern Exposure Gallery. The center image is a meal at the intersection where little Bobby Hutton, the first member of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, was murdered 50 years before, so this is 2018. This is a community meal spanning 2 city blocks for 500 people with People's Kitchen Collective, of which I'm a co-founder. And then the last image is an image from a project called Earthseed, where, inspired by Octavia Butler, PKC, a group of us as lead artists, decided to journey through California on foot, bicycle, bus, everything you can imagine, and meet with folks who are doing the work of surviving. And so that particular image is from Skid Row in Los Angeles. So we'll talk a little bit about these pieces. And along the way in these projects, whenever I'm stuck or I kind of need to recenter, I think about who is it for? And this question actually came to me when I was working on a piece about my mother, and a very different piece that I'm not going to talk about today, but I started realizing, like, this piece is for her, and not that it needs to be flattering, but it needs to be like true to her lived experience, to who I know her to be. And so for instance, this Piñata project, this question of who is it for, it started to kind of amass the group of people who would go on to build this actual wall. There were piñata makers, Paco and Victor Martinez and Paco Leon, who were based at the time in Oakland, chefs, DJs, who else? Mathematicians, a couple educators, all sorts of folks, and I think that also as an educator, it's like, okay, clock of the world is ticking, to invoke Grace Lee Boggs. How is it that we use whatever we're obsessed with, whatever we're called to, whatever tool seems interesting for us to follow, to do something that leaves this world just a little bit better than we found it? And so this, it was both this crew of folks who had never met before, who, some of who I had known for a long time, and we came together, and I really realized, like, this project was for all of us, and this conversation around migration, immigration that was increasingly violent, we all had a personal connection to. We all had a stake in the game, as it were. And so Cici Carpio of Trust Your Struggle, who's in the center holding another collaborator's child, was one of the collaborators. She tagged the wall, and both sides of the wall were tagged with messages from Trust Your Struggle and from Young Queens on the Rise, a youth group that met at Southern Exposure Gallery at the time. So you can see Black Lives Matter. Again, this is 2016. So Black Lives Matter on the bottom, No Dakota Access Pipeline, Free Palestine, Fake Wall, Real Feelings. It really started kind of taking on, like, as people kept adding to it, I realized that it was one of those things that just started growing into something that was more than the sum of its parts. This is one of my favorite images of one of our fierce, what does he call it? Demolition crew, yeah. Fierce members of the demolition crew. And that, I don't know if anybody was there in the audience. There's 1, 2, yes, Valerie. And there was a feeling that I have not experienced before or since that was just this, like, tension of, like, it felt like people were excited and angry and like something could just snap. I know that it was what we were experiencing at the time, and that's just uncertainty and fear. Another question I've learned to ask myself along the way is by artist Seitu Jones, who I also see just so much connection into what we've been talking about today and in Bonnie's work. And when he was guiding People's Kitchen Collective on our meal in the streets, he was like, guys, come on. You need to be clear about what's in it for you, and there has to be something that's in it for you. Otherwise, you're not being honest, and actually, it's not helpful. Like, you need to be, transparent about that for yourself. And this is us. This is Saqib, Keval, Jocelyn Jackson, and myself. People's Kitchen was started by Saqib, Keval, as a college project in 2007, and then in 2015, the three of us began cooking together, creating together, and turned it into People's Kitchen Collective. And that, I think it's like, it's constantly those questions. Who is it for? Who is it with? What's in it for me? What's going on here? What's the need? Like those questions kind of cycling through these projects, especially as they span multiple years, as people and needs shift and change. This is an image from the meal on the streets, and this is another kind of, just to show you the scale of it. It's pretty amazing. And it was also the first time that I worked so closely. Jocelyn Jackson really took the reins on doing all the community outreach, but just that, the door knocking, the hosting open meetings, walking up and down the street with snacks and just asking folks, what their thoughts were about this meal, what they needed, what they wanted to see, was a very new experience for me as an artist, and also the scale. Who do you call in? Is a very important question to me. And who do you call on? And there's a difference to them. And I think of this as also just like, who is ancestor, elder, neighbor, cousin, bookseller, all of the folks that I drop in on especially when I'm stuck. And who do I need to do right by? And all of those questions very much went into the last project that I'll talk about, which is Earthseed. This is a map that I found an uncanny resemblance to a lot of the map. This was actually made by Haivo, who was one of the 3 lead artists for Earthseed, but this was their map with quotes from Octavia Butler and just kind of annotating like the path that we were going to take through Allensworth through one of the 5 sections in this project. These images, because it's being edited right now, we embarked on this journey last year, 2023. I had a 2-year-old at the time, which made the project very different for me than I expected at the outset. And we basically had read the Parable series by Octavia Butler, and we knew for a long time, for actually over a decade, that we wanted to use this as a that this was going to be our next creative project after the meal on the streets. We just didn't know how, and I remember we were like talking about doing this like community meal, the whole thing, whatever. And we were on this call, and I go, guys, this is boring. Come on, what's really radical is if we actually like walked all the way from Pasadena, where they start in the novels, and ended in Mendocino. And like, we were all on Zoom, right? Lion goes silent, and I remember Hai goes, yeah, I would do that. And then Jocelyn goes, yeah, if Hai went, I would go with them. And in my head, I was like, well, I'm pregnant right now. I don't know if this is... Yeah, sure, I'll go. What do I say? I'm an artist. Come on, I'll just strap the kid to my back. Let's go. And so we embarked on this journey in the spring of last year, meeting with community members. This is Pancake from LA Can, who was guiding us through Skid Row. This is us camping at the Masamoto's family farm of these incredibly delicious and famous peaches, if you ever have a chance to try them. Doing just incredible work with on their land, and have for generations, where we camped. And the thread that we were asking through this walk and through this journey was, in this time of change, who do you want to walk with? Who are you walking for? Who are you walking with? Who do you want to come along in this journey? And the crazy thing about California is that because of agriculture, because of climate change, because of all these things, housing, you walk through California and you encounter pretty much every issue that I can think of that we're facing globally right now. And that is coupled with the folks doing the work of radical survival through radical hospitality, was what was guiding us through the state. This idea of radical hospitality is something that People's Kitchen Collective has really kind of leaned into over this project, and thinking about, what is that edge? How is hospitality fierce? And that is also a question that I see like a lot of kind of threads through as I was going through the exhibition too, is this like, there's this, I think there's sometimes it's like, oh, it's a garden, right? But there's an edge there, And it has something to do, to me, with survival, and not just to getting by, but of how is it that we can bring people along to get to a better place. And so these questions, as I think of myself, I don't want to do this alone. I could never do this alone. I don't want to do this alone. Who is going to be walking with us? Who do we want to walk with? And so that's something that I've been thinking about in, we make constellations of the stars. I've been thinking about all of these different ways. I'm wondering where that notepad went, if it went all the way around or if it's still behind me. It's still, okay. I think I don't know how far or not it went, but I'll end maybe with this wherever this person is writing.
Do you want us to bring it up?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. All right, it looks like it went far, but it didn't go all the way around. But I did want to read and just invoke by way of some of the folks in the room, because we are a constellation today, and we are in relationship by sharing this moment in time. I use snacks, cars, art, words, mullein and olive oil, paint and art, intuition, native plants, written and oral archives, words, articles about art history, spaces, relationships with artists, screenings, listening, work, words and sentences, life, and clay, to make community, art, me sane, essays, salve for my hands, beauty, truth, peace, decisions, public art, history, books, syllabi, and essays, community, site-specific experiments, conversations, holding, magic, histories come alive, art, and flower vessels. And together we make constellations of the stars. Thank you.